introduction,
Sure,
Pooja.
Nitin.
And moving on to the topic, it's all about building icons, and we're focusing on Indian modernism. Now, modernism is usually defined as rejection of traditional thoughts, beliefs. But is that really what happens when you look at property development as an ecosystem? Now, I'd like to start off with Mukesh, especially because you look at things from a planning and project consultancy perspective. What truly makes a development iconic in India? Is it visual prominence or is it long-term contribution to urban efficiency and resilience?
I think firstly, thank you for having me here and such an august audience and panelists. Hello. I believe that an iconic, what we perceive as iconic design, there are two thoughts there. Some people feel that the form is more important than the function. And if you come up with these beautiful, sculptural, unique designs, that will sort of establish an iconic status. My company only deals with projects which are considered iconic. And I'll talk in context of the project that I'm working on. So one of the projects we started was the Dharavi redevelopment project. 25 years ago, people called me a fool because government was giving away Dharavi land for free. And I said, no, that's a mistake. And we can do better than BKC. And everyone laughed at me. Today, you know, Mr. Adani has taken over, and I think he's going to make wonders. At that time, my thought was that a typical Mumbaikar does not want to get into Dharavi. And a slum dweller, that was the government thought. And the slum dweller should get low-cost housing and sort of do the standard SRA scheme. I went and met Mr. Balasaheb Thackeray, and I said, your slum scheme will fail. Luckily, I was an NRI at that time. So NRIs have the little extra pass to be able to sort of cross the line. And then I gave him the concept, but I said, Dharavi is not just for Mumbaikars. Dharavi has to integrate with the rest of India and the rest of the world. And we have to design, because where do you get 600 acres of land? And once you demolish all the slums, how can you not make it better than BKC? Because BKC was 70s. We are now talking of 90s, etc. Luckily, he supported me. Later on, others supported me. And we created what is today internationally perceived as an iconic project. Now, to me, iconic is not just merely design of some beautiful building. Somehow, iconic buildings, the form and function seems to have segregated. I feel they complement each other as per the master's thoughts of 20th century. But now we're building 21st century India. And therefore, if you make it sustainable for the people and relevant to the city, to the culture, etc., using the latest technology, latest design tools, and now with softwares available, you can create some magnificent designs and then bring it, then it becomes a unique, in this case, community, but individual buildings also. In my case, what has happened is every project that we have touched has expanded its value and profitability for the client threefold, fourfolds, and sometimes tenfolds, just because it is treated as unique. Now, what is iconic today has to remain classic in a way, where tomorrow it's a way of life. What was considered iconic of Corbusier or Frank Lloyd Wright 50 years ago, 70 years ago, a lot of us can design those buildings, build those buildings, and build better than that. And I feel, to me, that is what will be relevant to call it iconic.
Now, those were some behind-the-scenes stories that we're all glad Mukesh could share with us. Now, I'd like to pass it on to Sapna. As an architect who's deeply involved in translating vision into built form, how do you define Indian modernism? Is it sort of something that should be rooted more in cultural identity, or should it be more aligned with Western design language that are currently dominating skylines?
So I think it's a multifaceted approach that we take. I don't think I can pick any one, either ways. Cultural identity will actually make the space or give the architecture or the design its own soul. Imbibing global standards will make it relevant to the connected world. We are far more connected than we used to be. And keeping all that in mind, amalgamating everything will give you a space which is more humanizing. I think that is a factor that we forget. It's not about the cultural, it's not about how it looks, it's all about how it feels or how the person sitting, occupying that space actually feels. And I think amalgamating all these three things, which is, keeping them synthetic, will actually make it more livable. We talk about the spaces, how the commute happens. I'll just give you a small example. I was traveling to this place, and I don't know if all of you experienced the evening traffic. I actually had to get off my car, hike, hitch a ride on the way with a biker and reach here. This is what we are all struggling with today. So it's not about iconism. It's not about what it looks like. It's about creating spaces which are conducive to humans. Today, time is something which is so short of. So how do we actually make spaces where people can reach faster, they can access amenities faster, they can access their home faster, their office spaces faster? If we keep all that in mind and create environments or neighborhoods, that will give us better results. And then, of course, everything follows through. And one more very important thing is also keeping the environment in mind, because India does have extreme climatic conditions. So that is what will also define the comfort of the people occupying the spaces. So your HVAC quality, your lighting quality, what comes in, your water quality, your nutrition quality that you offer. So I think that also will take precedence over the other two factors. But I would say, in and all, if you combine all of these factors, is what will define good architecture or good design.
At the end, it's the human who's also occupying that space that matters. Now, since you talked about environment, there's obviously the question that comes to mind is that of sustainability. So, Bhushan, I'd like to ask you about sustainability becoming integral to urban development. How can Indian modernism evolve to create iconic structures that are not only visibly striking, but also environmentally responsible?
I think now we have to think from the point of view of environmentally or sustainable, all the words that we talk are going to be the basic principles to start a project. Because going forward, looking at the AQI levels that we are having, the people are facing construction issues we are facing. Sapna said about the traffic issues or the water logging issues that happens in monsoon. Iconic buildings will be must. I think even the government of Maharashtra has come up with a resolution to have some iconic buildings. We have a recent example, classic example of Dubai. After the Burj Khalifa, everything in Dubai changed. So we will require some kind of iconic buildings. Government will have to incentivize us to create more iconic buildings, help different architectures to give architecture kind of designs where there are a lot of restrictions because of the FSI regulations. Environmental will play a role where you have to see how your next generation perceives it. Because now when you think next generation thinks, can we have solar energy with us? Can we have proper storage, STP plants? That are now the basic things. But once you go high-rise, iconic in Mumbai is, we think about high-rise buildings. How high-rise buildings will be sustainable, how their electricity can be generated or regenerated, that will be a big issue. How parking maneuvering will happen, how if you are going to use more mechanical parkings, then how that is going to be sustainable in long run, that is going to be a challenge. So all these things looking at environmental, sustainable and construction technology will have to come together to create some kind of synergies. And I think, as Mukesh sir said, a lot of technologies are available now. We can use them, and we have already, the construction industry has started using them for faster construction. Now we have to look at how we can create faster, better and sustainable construction. So that is going to be the key going forward.
Now,
Thank you.
especially since you mentioned faster and Mumbai being a city that operates at a ridiculous pace, Ayushi, I'd like to ask you about the speed and scale at which developments happen in the city. And since we're talking about iconic structures, what differentiates a project that becomes a momentary landmark from one that earns sort of long-term cultural significance? Could we please check the mic?
Hello. Thank you for having me here today. I think what really creates an iconic building, and in a city like Bombay, I think the hardest thing is to find large land parcels, right? Like when you look at Dubai, you look at all these other cities, they have large land parcels, and so you can really create iconic structures. When we have, smaller plots of land, how do you truly create icons there? I think the first thing starts from the story. By story, I mean your inspiration to create an iconic structure. That may come from the location, it may come from the heritage of that land, it can come from your inspiration, something you have seen maybe in the world, and it starts with that story first. The second thing to truly make something iconic is craftsmanship. By craftsmanship, I mean the quality of materials that truly make a building timeless. Because that iconicity is not created in the first 2 years when you're constructing it. It has to be iconic after those 2-3 years, after you have handed it over, and customers are coming in, living, experiencing that building day in, day out. That's where it truly becomes an icon, and that's where craftsmanship really shows. And the third thing I would say is it has to leave something on the urban ecosystem. For example, we're doing a project on Pali Hill, and inevitably the story there is that it's a heritage plot, it's Dilip Saab's bungalow, and for us that was a very integral part of the story, that we wanted to stay true to the legacy that he has created. With craftsmanship, we really wanted to again do justice to that, and we have a complete stone-clad building there, which is one of its kind in Bombay. But the urban impact of that project is that we also have a museum there, which would, which would kind of serve the larger audience who can come in and experience that project and experience that building. Even though it's a luxury project, we have a separate space for a museum that would really kind of that embodies his legacy and his work. So I think buildings should have a mix of these three things to truly stand out and create iconic structures.
Now, as Indian cities scale rapidly, that too, how can planning and infrastructure frameworks ensure modern developments ease mobility and services rather than intensifying urban stress? Now, all of you touched upon the urban stress bit quite a lot. Now, Mukesh, could you also give us a little insight on this?
Yeah. So as cities, most of our cities have grown organically over the last 75 years. And most of them are getting regenerated, renewed. So firstly, you have an opportunity to more efficiently plan the existing cities. And of course, the growth, as you're seeing, you have Mumbai 1, Mumbai 2, Mumbai 3, MMRDX, area expand, etc. But sadly, it's the same 20th century thinking. So we're not thinking, okay, 50 years from today, what Dubai or what China, the kind of examples they're leading to build futuristic cities, what should we do? In fact, I've spoken to some senior officers in charge of some of these projects. And when I talk to them, that, sir, we have an opportunity to create future where instead of us looking at Dubai or Singapore or China, Sudan and other countries which may come up 50 years, 20 years from now, should be looking at us. The officers don't want to see my face anymore. Because they're saying, ye standard jo hai, वैसे ही रहना चाहिए. I feel that we have to make these cities essentially where quality of life becomes critical and it becomes a tourist attraction. There are 5 areas in which that happens. One is people travel from any part of the world to any other part of the world if for health tourism. For health reasons, they'll go anywhere. For business reasons, they'll go anywhere. For sightseeing, they'll go anywhere. Education, they'll go anywhere. Cultural experience, they'll go anywhere. So if we create these world-class cities with world-class whole system, then the quality of life becomes beautiful and you're going for the sake of that quality of life. And so planning that, we have to foresee 50 years from today what's going to happen. None of our cities, unfortunately, have seen that. Not only that, but even today, redeveloping Mumbai or redeveloping Thane or other parts, we are making the same mistake. So it's more of cut and paste architecture. It's if you look out, you can't identify really whether something new, creative is coming up. This is the fault of me and my peer group that is doing that, but also the developers who don't have the courage to take that risk and say, yes, we should be able to do it. And our fault because we are not able to market our ideas clearly. So if we look at it from that 20-year cycle, why should I have to go from Borivali to Nariman Point to do a business? That's what we're doing in Thane now. Walk to work. And so we'll create something where BKC starts looking like a poor cousin. And therefore, Thane becomes important. Navi Mumbai becomes important. Karjat, Panvel, all these places, you have massive opportunities. And even if you're rebuilding in Mumbai, make it absolutely world-class because the cost of construction is negligible in comparison to the cost of land. So why not give the best quality and emulate people like Oberoi or people like some of these fantastic developers, Lodha and others. And I feel they also can raise their standard even much, much higher. So I think if we do it in that context, we'll make a world mark.
Now we've got 1.5 minutes on the counter, so this is the time for a nice, fun question, a little bit of forecasting, peering into the future, 20 to 30 years down the line. What is that one architectural or planning decision made today that may strongly define the identity and livability of future Indian cities? Anyone can start. Swapna, how about you?
Does it work? Yeah. Okay. I think I'll continue from where I started. What will work is creating smaller ecosystems, smaller cities where everyone can live, work, recreate, creating communities where people feel a part of the community and not just, I'm just contradicting what you said about iconic buildings. You would look at an iconic building maybe for 5 seconds, but what you see at your eye level, what you feel at your eye level is going to be more important. So how you walk, how you communicate, how can you build eye contact with your neighbors, how you can go to a grocery store within 5 minutes, how can you reach your workplace within 10 minutes. I think that is what will define a successful living space in the next 20, 30 years, rather than, creating.
Awesome. And Bhushan, you seem to be eager to share your 2 cents.
Yeah. So in a way I agree because livability is going to be a key thing. People are less on time. Everybody has less time and they want more time for themselves, for their families. So walk to work, mixed use developments. I think that is going to be the quite good quality mixed-use developments that we see in Singapore, where people go to work, just walk to work, even the restaurants are nearby, even the schools are nearby. If that kind of community building, if we are able to do. But in Mumbai, land holdings are very small. So to create mixed-use developments, maybe the bigger areas will be required, or a cluster redevelopment will be required, where that will help us to do more mixed-use development. And with the mixed-use development, if the livability and becomes better, automatically that will create into some kind of iconic modernization. That's what I feel. Thank you.
Yes, please, Mukesh.
The communities, as Sapna said, as Bhushan said, are the core where you live. But I feel there needs to be that at the primary level. And then there's secondary level for the sake of economy of scale. For example, you can't have the Nita Ambani Center in 35 parts of Mumbai, because that is the tertiary level, or your court system, or your other convenience system. And therefore, at primary, secondary, tertiary level of whatever you're living, convenience, depending on the frequency of use that you have, I think will improve the quality of life. Ultimately, everything focuses on quality of life. If that improves, your happiness index, your relaxation index improves, and your productivity improves. And this is precisely what we're doing in Thane, the walk to work, the cultural experiences, etc., but at that primary level. And I think that will help.
And would you like to round it off, Ayushi?
I genuinely feel that architecture is one part of it, but what we have ignored for a long time is urban planning. And we need, micro-market specific urban planning codes to really feel the architecture of that micro-market. It shouldn't be that, I'm passing by one project and one project is completely on a different, design language and another is on a different design language, which happens today. And yes, that is a creative call, but there has to be a little bit more urban planning code that would kind of sync up everything.
Those were some really interesting perspectives into the thoughts going into designing India's future iconic cities and the decisions that need to be taken to ensure that they are livable and iconic. A big round of applause to all our esteemed panelists. Thank you all for joining us. And Pooja?
Thank you, Mithun, and thank you to all of our panelists, of course.